Thanks for coming out. I think recapping the game, I think one of the things I didn't touch on post game that I do want to make sure I say, I think one of the things I was probably most proud of is that was by far and away the most effort and strain that our team has put on tape since I've been here. I know it's only been 3 games, but I just thought we played harder than we did the first 2 weeks, and that was something that we really challenged them to do, and I think that showed up all over the tape. So we were excited for that. I think a lot of the keys to victory we talked about coming out of the game, but again, when you win the turnover battle in an SEC game on the road, 3-0, that's going to lead to success a lot. We were really good on conversion downs, both sides of the ball. I thought that was a critical piece of this thing. Twice we had offensive drives start inside the 10-yard line, and we were able to take them all the way down the field and score. And so I think those were the positives coming out. Negatives, obviously, the penalties is something we've got to get cleaned up quickly. They came in a lot of different ways. We had pre-snap penalties, we had blocking penalties, we had over-aggression penalties, and so those kind of just cropped up out of nowhere a little bit, and so we got to get that fixed really quick. And I think just all in all, the way we finished the game wasn't good enough, especially on defense and special teams. And so I think we've got to learn how to play the complete 4 quarters the right way. From our standpoint, our linemen of the week were Shamar Stewart on defense and Trey Zune on offense. Trey Zune was also the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, so we're excited for him. Our players of the week, Marcel Reed was on offense, Cassius Howell was on defense, and Torian York was the special teams player of the week. And so excited for those guys. As we flip the page, moving ahead to Bowling Green, obviously a school that's very dear to me. Spent 5 years at Bowling Green as a defensive coordinator. Family absolutely love that town, have a lot of really fond memories, and still a lot of really good friends that live up in Bowling Green. And so a lot of respect for that school, a lot of respect for that university and their program. Coach Scott Leffler, their head coach, I've known for a long time. I've gone against him back when he was an offensive coordinator and I was a defensive coordinator. I think it was 3 times that I counted that we went against each other, and so very familiar with him and what they do on offense. He does a really, really good job offensively. They've got a really talented group on offense. They have quarterback Connor Bezdelic, who was at Missouri the last time we actually won our road game. He was the quarterback for Missouri that day, and a little bit of irony, they got 3 really talented running backs. They got a wide receiver who transferred in from Auburn. They got a tight end who's leading the country in reception yards for a tight end, really talented football player. They got 5 offensive linemen who are multi-year starters, and so it's a really experienced offensive group. They present a lot of stress on you with how they run their system. They do a really, really good job, and so this is a talented group for sure. Defensively, they're led by Steve Morrison. I know him a lot from my days back in the MAC. He's been a defensive coordinator now at Bowling Green for 6 years, and they play like it. They play like a group that's really comfortable in the system. They're able to jump in and out of 4-down and 3-down fronts. They got some experienced athletic kids up front. They got a linebacker, Joseph Sipp, in the middle, who's a really talented player, can go sideline to sideline, makes a ton of plays. And they've got an elite corner in Jordan Oladukin out on the outside, and so they're talented at every level. They're going to present problems, and we got to get ourselves ready to play. And so that's kind of where we're at. From there, I'll open up the questions.
Down front, Brent.
To follow up, how much you'll miss Tyreek Chappelle. You told us about it afterward, and you're kind of playing, what that means to the secondary and moving forward, and how much you'll miss him as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tyreek was having a really, really good year and had done an awful lot through spring ball and fall camp and was playing at a really high level, and so he'll be missed tremendously. I think he was certainly one of, if not the most talented player we had back there in the secondary, but injuries happen, and so it's got to be the next man up, and we got to get ourselves ready to go. And obviously, Jaden Hill will play a big role in that, and we'll start to figure out who potentially shuffles in and around that position. I don't think it will be the names everyone is thinking. It's not the familiar names going back to nickel. I think the 2 defensive structures are completely different, but I do think there's some corners that we'll start looking at that position to kind of get ourselves through the rest of the year.
And the games seem longer than ever, and I know there are bills to pay for people, in terms of the commercial breaks and all those things. From a coaching standpoint, do you mind that? Do you care? Do you get to coach more because of that, or what is your approach on that?
Honestly, I don't notice it as much. It was like the first thing my family said to me after the game was like, God, that took forever. But like when you're in it, like you don't notice it. I guess there was like a sequence of like back-to-back timeouts and TVs. Like you just don't notice that. Like so while all that stuff is going on and it's a lull for the people watching it, when you're in it, you're just going. And so I guess to just say I don't really notice that part of it it. You just go start to finish, and you watch the clock go, and then it's over, and then you look at a watch, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize it was 5 hours later and stuff like that. But you don't really pay attention.
You might like it 'cause you get to coach more.
No, honest to God, you're just going. Like when the game starts, like you're just going, and then the game's over, and then that's probably the first time you pick your head up out of the sand and figure out what actually happened.
Second row on the left, Alex, and then down front, Travis.
You mentioned your time at Bowling Green. Just how influential was that on your coaching journey? Maybe some of the key things you learned, some of the key moments along the way during those 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was my first Division I defensive coordinator job, and so learned a lot. Probably got there not quite ready to be a Division I defensive coordinator, and think certainly left with one of the best defenses in the country. And along the way, I think started to shape this package into what it's become. Certainly, what it meant to be a coach and a defensive coordinator at the Division I level, managing staff, and then just relationships. I think there's so many players. I think Wake Forest and Bowling Green are probably the two places where I have the most connections, and Bowling Green probably the most. I think there's like 7 or 8 kids from Bowling Green coming out to the game this weekend, and there'll be people on the sidelines and stuff that I've known for a long time. And so I just think the relationships and the connections.
Down front, Travis, and then go to the left.
With a couple days removed now, how are y'all managing the quarterback situation? How is Connor's recovery going?
Yeah, so Connor's going to be listed as day to day and week to week, however you want to word that. We'll kind of get him through and see where he's at with everything. We'll continue to manage the quarterback room very similar to how we have, and play the guy on Saturday that we think gives us the best chance to win.
And then what was it about EJ that stood out to you that y'all pursued him, and what has he been able to bring to the program so far?
Yeah, I think one was he was. We remembered EJ from high school, and so there's a character element when you're in the transfer portal. One of the things you're always trying to make sure is that you protect the character and culture of your locker room, and so when you have connections with people, that helps. And so we knew him from his days as a running back in Dallas. Remembered him obviously, and had a lot of respect for who he was as a young man. And then when we put the film on from Stanford, he had been a really productive football player. And so the combination of getting a kid who you were familiar with, who had been very productive at the Power 5 level, it just seemed to make sense for what we were looking for.
Front left, Cease, and then we'll go to Mark. Either way, we'll flip. There you
You
go.
guys
Give
can get
the
an
old
arm
man.
wrestling match for it if you'd like.
If we go back a little bit to Chappelle, you also didn't have Jones and Brooks go out in the second. Other than the interception, Mertz had some pretty good numbers. I just wondered how you graded your secondary with so many moving parts that last game.
Yeah, not great. We weren't bad, but we weren't great. And I think we're still learning how to play the coverage and the system at the level that we want to. I think there's a little bit more that goes into it when you start playing SEC talent on the outside, and it's not just straight, I got him, and, you're trying to do some different things with combination coverages and how you're trying to pass things off and some of that stuff. And I don't think we always did that exactly the way we wanted to, but I do think at the end of the day, we executed the plan the way we wanted to create a multitude of looks for them. But we certainly could have been a lot more detailed in how we did it.
Front left, Mark.
This one's going a little bit back in the Wayback Machine, but in 2020, Game 3 against Florida, in the second half, the offensive line just kind of took over and kind of created the identity for that offense for that year. Do you feel like there was some kind of similarity between what you saw in that game and what you saw this offensive line do on Saturday?
That's a tough question, Mark. I don't think I paid any attention to our offensive line in 2020, other than I knew they were good. I will say this: I think we've asked our offensive line to be the identity of our program. I think that's how you want your program to be. We've challenged them in a lot of little areas, right? Pick our running backs up, protect our quarterback, play harder than everyone else on the football field, conduct yourself a certain kind of way. Like, that to me is what your offensive line should be. And that part for sure we had going back in 2020 and 2021 when I was here last time. And that's how that program went. And so I think these kids have kind of embraced wanting to be that for our program. And so every time you go out there and you see our kids pushing piles and running to pick people up and clearing people off of our backs and getting our backs up off the ground, like, those things to me mean an awful lot about what your program stands for and what the culture of your program looks like. And so, yeah, I think from that perspective, some of the intangibles in terms of the actual specifics, I wouldn't be able to comment on it.
Coach, back behind the lights on the right, Chip, and then Ben.
Mike, sometimes you'll hear people say, well, that guy's not a practice player, but when the lights come on, he shines. I'm wondering with Marcel, is he as consistent, and has he been consistent in practice from what you've seen when you put him in games?
You know, it's such a small sample size in games to say that he's been consistent. I think we feel really comfortable with who Marcel is. Like, it's never been, it always has to land on these seesaws of like good and bad, right? There's nowhere in between a lot of times when these conversations happen. But you know, we have a lot of confidence in Marcel. We always have. I've stood on this podium multiple times and talked about him as a really talented quarterback long before he had to go into a game and try to win us one. And so you know, that's why I think I said after the game it didn't surprise me. And so is he as consistent? Yeah, he's consistent, and he's young, and he goes through the ups and downs of being a quarterback, no different than Connor, no different than Jalen. And he's got a skill set that we can work with, and we have a lot of confidence that we can put points on the board when he's our quarterback.
Staying back behind the lights on the right, Ben.
Speaking to Marcel, just how have you seen him, especially on the 2 touchdown plays? It looked like the first one kind of went through multiple progressions. The second one had the flat there. He talked about it after the game, but was able to see the opening up on the touchdown down the field. Just what have you seen from him in practice in moments like that? Kind of maybe reading defenses at a deeper level instead of just the first option, being able to go through and find those options.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that Colin works with all of our quarterbacks, and him, in particular, on all the time. I think there has to be a progression to our process. We talk every week about and the quarterbacks will tell you this, the thing I yell at them the most is when they make scout team throws. Like, I don't want to see you make a scout team throw just because a guy is open if that's not where the ball should go, right? The ball's got to go where the ball's supposed to go based on coverage, look, leverage, not just because Noah Thomas can run past the scout team quarterback, or you're going to just throw the ball there. And so I think we harp that stuff a lot, and so we see it every day because I think Colin demands it of him. And so I think that's maybe some of the improvement that we've gotten from him.
And just quick follow-up on Tyreek. I know it just happened, but have y'all, in terms of discussion about potentially getting a medical red shirt, is that something he's expressed interest in, or are y'all still working through that? Or
Probably still working through it. Now, it's not even a medical red shirt for him. This is just Tyreek's 4th year. And so from his perspective, in terms of just eligibility, regardless of what ultimately he decides to do, from an eligibility standpoint, this will just be a redshirt year for him, and he'll have another year of college football to play if he chooses to.
Staying back behind the lights, Tyler in the middle.
Yeah, Mike, you see what Bowling Green, did to Penn State a couple weeks ago, and does something like that kind of help open the eyes to the team and your familiarity with the program of, helping them realize that, this could potentially be a trap game. It's not, it is at a conference, but just, getting them, still ready for an opponent like Bowling Green.
Yeah, we get ready for Bowling Green because we respect every opponent we play, and we know everyone can beat us. And so I don't think of it as a trap game. I don't think of it as an out-of-conference game. I think of it as a must-win Saturday night in Kyle Field. And so that's how we're going to treat every game we play. This one's no different. They're a talented football team regardless of their results. The focus will and always is on us and our ability to play our best football for sure. But I think if we ever take the football field thinking about any of the things you just said, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so we're just going to focus on each opponent and play the best football we can.
Third row on the left, Austin American Statesman.
How you doing, Coach? Playing the first SEC game on the road in a hostile environment, is there something specific you maybe didn't know about your team that you learned about your guys' resolve or their kind of can-do attitude there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing you take away from that game is the way we overcame adversity. I think there was, sometimes you go on the road and everything kind of goes your way, and it feels like it's an easier game. Like, I don't think that's what happened. The first drive we overcame 3 penalties. We get up, we get a lead, and all of a sudden we get a lightning delay. We go into halftime with a lead. We play a real bad drive coming out of halftime, and all of a sudden now it's a game again, and the crowd's going. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like I didn't feel like the ball just bounced our way all day. I felt like there were a lot of times in the course of the game where it could have really swung the other way, and I thought our kids really dug in and continued to make plays throughout the course of it, all the way to Bryce's interception that I think really put the game away. And so, yeah, I think probably that on the road in an environment that was uncomfortable for us, we stood through to a lot of adversity and continued to play the way we were capable of.
Second row on the right, Carter, and then Cease, you wrap us up.
Just a couple things. First, is there a status update with Coley Fayu?
No, still day to day. We hope to have him available. We hope to have Trey Jones available, but they'll go down. I think the best way to word it is day to day. I'm sure they'll be questionable if we have to put out an injury list this week.
And I know with Wigman, I think you mentioned Thursday he had his setback. Is there something you guys can do differently this week from how he practices? Do you guys want to do anything different, or handling it kind of the similar way? And then is there a time this week where you guys want to say, hey, this is who the guy will be starting, or will it probably be another game time decision?
Yeah, probably another game time decision. I think in terms of Connor, I think we're going to re-image it just to make sure that there's nothing we're missing. Make sure that we have the right plan in place for him. Yeah, anytime you have a plan in place and it doesn't work the way you hope to, regardless of offense, defense, special teams, medical, whatever, I think it's good leadership to reassess the plan and try to figure out if there's a better way to go about it. And so we're going to re-image it. It's probably happening right now as we speak. Make sure there's nothing we're missing. Make sure there's nothing we're not doing the right way. Sit down with our medical team this evening and come up with the right plan of action for him throughout this week.
To the left, Cease.
Getting back to your adversity, Mike, do you feel that your team won that game twice because you go out in a hostile environment, have dominated, then you got to go back in? A lot of teams, don't hit the reset button. Is that like a double dose of confidence or gaining,
Yeah, I don't know about from that standpoint, but obviously I thought there were a lot of times where we had to make plays to put it away, right? And so for sure that first drive, the Swamp was rocking, and we certainly put ourselves behind the eight ball a couple times with penalties and got out of that. And then you go in the locker room and it's like, okay, hey, we got to make sure we stay focused. Like, let's not come out flat. And we're able to come out of that break and pretty soon after put together the 99-yard drive. And so then you go in with a lead, and then you come out in the second half and it's like, okay, let's go play good football. In the first drive, they kind of go right down the field. And now all of a sudden it's a 2-score game and it's going again. And we respond again. We respond with the interception, And so I just felt like there was a lot of responses that we made to the big moments in the game, and that's what you have to do on the road to win football games, and we made them on both sides of the ball, and that was really good to see. And so I think the kids will walk away from all of that just knowing that they went on the road together and got the W. And, it's naive to think that wasn't a little bit of a weight on their shoulders, how long it had been. And so from that standpoint, probably more so than the delay part of it, I think they walk away feeling like they accomplished something.